Welcome back to A D in the Life. Today we have another fun video. I have been looking forward to making this all year. We're going through my best read of every month and my most disappointing read of every month. I know most people do best and worst read, but I think disappointing is a little bit more fun. When I was looking at my list, a lot of my worst reads were either debut novels or indie authors, and I feel like we don't really need to go through those. Disappointing ones are ones that were overhyped, which I think is more fun and more valuable information. So without further ado, let's get started with January. So I read 10 books in January. We started the year off a little bit slow. Not too many noteworthy reads. I did read Onyx Storm. I liked it. I did read How to Solve Your Own Murder, and then I had an arc of How to Seal Your Own Fate. I do really like this cozy mystery series. My top read of January, however, this book will bury me. This was such a fast-paced thriller, especially impressive given that it's over 400 pages. This author also wrote In My Dreams I Hold a Knife, which I read a couple weeks ago and I loved it. She has a new book coming out next year that's actually a romance. I love her writing. Her writing is very fast-paced, easy to read, but doesn't feel simple. This one is more of like a true crime thriller. It follows a girl dealing with some personal things by becoming an internet sleuth, and she finds a group of other internet sleuths, and then they band together to solve this crazy murder case. I loved it. I gave it 4.5 stars. For my most disappointing read, I have to go with The Return of Ellie Black. This was just a very not noteworthy thriller, and I feel like a lot of people rave about it. I found it to be a little bit slow even though it was short, which I never ever want from a thriller. I need a thriller to be fast paced. I think I gave this one 3 stars though. Not terrible, just this is the one that was the most disappointing in January. Moving on to February, I read 11 books. I finally returned to the Throne of Glass series. I did the tandem read of Tower of Dawn and Empire of Storms. I actually really enjoyed both of them, and I really enjoyed them as a tandem read. I would highly recommend if you are going to do the series. I truly think this is the best way to read those 2 books. I actually loved Tower of Dawn more than Empire of Storms. I also read P.S. I Hate You. Loved that book so much. One of the hottest grumpy book boyfriends I think ever, and it's a road trip romance, and I always eat those up. My favorite, however, absolutely goes to The Frozen River. Also worth noting, this was my first 5-star read of the year. This is such a good historical fiction. It's set in the late 1700s, but it's very accessible writing. This also gave me very similar vibes to Little House on the Prairie, which is a book series I loved as a child. So it kind of felt like returning to my childhood almost. It's also set in New England, set in the winter, so February was the best month to read it. This is about a midwife who lives in a town where a murder occurs. She's somehow intertwined with it. It's labeled as a thriller. I would say very much more of a mystery, but the end of this is perfection. No notes. Also, don't look up anything about it beforehand, and then make sure to read the author's note at the end. As for my most disappointing read, 2 nominees for this one: First Time Caller and The Woman in Cabin 10. First Time Caller was just so hyped on TikTok. I thought I was going to eat it up. It was my first BK Borison book, so definitely a little bit unfamiliar with her writing style, and I don't know that I always jive with it. The second half of this book did redeem itself though, which means that my most disappointing read was The Woman in Cabin 10. Again, not terrible. I think I ended up giving it 3 stars. The audiobook helped me get through it. If you asked me what the plot of this was, the only thing I could tell you is that they're on a luxury yacht and a murder occurs. It's kind of like a locked room mystery. Everyone is a suspect. The narrator isn't really reliable. Everyone is terrible. Those are the themes I can give you. I watched the movie. I wouldn't really say that the movie made me feel like the book was good or bad. This is just, to me, very mediocre thriller, if I'm being honest. There is a sequel to this also. I don't know if I'm ever going to read it. If you have, let me know if it's worth it. March was a doozy. I read 13 books. I finished the Throne of Glass series and I read Kingdom of Ash. I did love it. However, did I give it 4.5 stars? I don't think I gave it 5 stars, and I didn't really cry. I think that this one is overhyped in the sense that it is not like a holy grail book of mine, but it was a good way to end the series. I enjoyed it nonetheless. I also read Savor It and Left It Forever by Tara DeWitt. She is now an auto read romance author for me. I just love her writing so much. But in March, I also read Deep End by Ali Hazelwood, and if you watched my last video, you know that this was also a 5-star read for me. Gobbled it up. Truly read this one so fast. I just love the setting of it. This follows a collegiate diver and swimmer. I believe the diver is the woman, the swimmer is the man. They enter this friends with benefits type relationship, but they're also exploring a certain type of relationship. I don't really want to spoil anything. I don't really understand the argument for why you wouldn't like this if you like Ali Hazelwood. I kind of thought that the spice level was perfect because they are in college, but they're also being a little bit exploratory. I loved Lucas. He's a Swedish hunky man. I just truly had no notes on this one. For most disappointing, yet again, I have a couple candidates. Binding 13, I don't understand the obsession with this series. I didn't hate this book by any means, but I did not love it. It was long. It did end on a crazy cliffhanger, but not enough for me to want to read the second book immediately. And also, they're like young teen teenagers, and maybe I'm too old, maybe that's just not what I really want to read about, I don't know. I'm sure this is more of a personal taste thing. Surprisingly though, that was not my most disappointing read of March. It actually ended up being The Ministry of Time. I'm so sad about this one because this is a time travel historical fiction novel, which I love. I love time travel. The concept also reminded me of a TV show that I used to love. Was it called Timeless? I'll put a picture of it here. I don't remember exactly what it was called. This just was basically written entirely in idioms and metaphors, and it was very poetic, and that's just not really my style of writing, especially for a sci-fi. It didn't work for me. The book was trying to do a little bit too much. It kind of dragged, and I think it was under 300 pages. Oh, and I didn't like the ending. There was a surprise twist in here, but yeah, not my fave. If I remember correctly, I gave this one 3.5 stars. So again, I didn't hate it, but I thought this for sure was going to be closer to a 5-star read. April was another pretty good reading month. I read 12 books, including The House in the Cerulean Sea, which did end up being a 5-star read, mostly because of the audio. The audio was phenomenal. I also read One Good Thing by Georgia Hunter, one of my favorite historical fictions that I read this year. I also read Quicksilver, which was a surprise favorite of mine, The Unmaking of June Farrow. This was a magical realism book with a very similar theme to another book that I mentioned before, but I don't want to give any spoilers, but I ate this one up. However, I was also lucky enough to get an e-arc of It's a Love Story by Annabel Monaghan, and I loved it. I didn't give this 5 stars. I gave it 4.5 stars, but objectively, this was my favorite read of the month. It got me so excited for summer because it had the best beach read vibes. It's set in Long Island and it follows a woman in Hollywood. She used to be a child actress. Now she's trying to be more of a studio producer. She's trying to get a project greenlit, but the only way she can do it is if she agrees to go to her coworker's hometown to try to get a celebrity to be part of the movie. It's a whole thing. Very complex plot to try to explain. I think that if you love a grumpy book boyfriend with more depth, you will love this. Also, the main female character is in her 30s and incredibly relatable and single, which also made me feel so good about reading this. I truly loved it. I will eat up anything this author writes. She's one of my favorite romance authors. Now for my most disappointing, we have a two-way tie. I simply could not choose one. The Lies of Lena and The Favorites. The Lies of Lena, honestly, I don't even remember the plot of this one. It's a romantasy. It's about a girl with magical powers, but she's hiding her magical powers. She ends up entangled with the prince. I think she's in her late teens, but she's also a virgin, and there's a lot of spice in this that I just didn't want to read about. It was very insta-love. It's a long book. I don't know why everyone loves this book so much. I think I ended up giving it 3 stars. I don't know. This will just never be a book that I recommend. It wasn't terrible, but it's not one that's a standout for me. And then The Favorites, I think I gave this one 3.75 out of 5 stars. I've talked about this book before. I am an avid ice skating fan. Everyone is obsessed with heated rivalry, rightfully so. But if you created a version of that where it was ice skaters, male ice skaters, I would eat that up even more. It is literally a hobby of mine to watch ice skating on television. I have never ice skated in my life. I thought I would love this book so much. The characters were just way too toxic for me. It was long. The audio really wasn't that great. I just was so disappointed with this one. I thought it was going to be so good and it was just fine. May is a crazy month. I read 15 books. I don't know what I was doing. I just couldn't stop reading, which isn't a bad thing. I read Rebel Witch, which is the follow-up to Heartless Hunter. I talked about this book in the last video as well. I love this duology so much. It's between a witch and a witch hunter. Probably one of the truest enemies to lovers out there. I also read You with a View, my first Jessica Joyce novel, and I ate it up. That was an addictive novel. Also kind of road trip romance. Grumpy book boyfriend, hot grumpy book boyfriend. Loved it. I also read Funny Story, one of my favorite Emily Henry books. I read Wild Dark Shore, such a good atmospheric sci-fi read. But I also read Every Summer After and One Golden Summer, and this was yet again another 5-star read for me. The most perfect strangers to lovers romance to ever exist. This follows Alice, who is a photographer. She ends up going to a lake house that she used to hang out with in the summers when she was a kid with her grandma for like a little bit of bonding, and she runs into Charlie, the other brother from Every Summer After. You can kind of assume where that leads you. I ate it up. Perfect lake house vibes. Perfect read during the summer, end of summer, right before summer. Ugh, I truly have no notes on this one. Also, the cover is stunning. Now, incredibly, despite reading 15 books in May, none of them were really that disappointing. So I'm going to tell you my least favorite, and that was The Bachelorette Party. This is a thriller set on a remote island. It's a bachelorette party, toxic friend group, locked room mystery, everyone's a suspect, etc., etc. All things that I love. I didn't end up loving this thriller. All the characters were just too unlikable, a little bit not smart. I would like to try this author again. I think she's a pretty well-known thriller author. So if you have read any of her books, let me know if any of them are worth it. 13 books in June. Again, a couple couple heavy hitters in this. The Names, which I loved, a debut lit fic, and I love when I read a debut novel that impresses me. Such a unique plot in that one. I also read Happy Place, which I ended up really loving despite thinking I might not because a lot of people don't like that Emily Henry book. Loved it. But in reality, it was very easy to choose my favorite this month, and that was Atmosphere. To me, this had the perfect amount of historical fiction and romance. This follows Joan, who gets into the NASA space program in the 80s. So you follow her journey becoming an astronaut, which is such a cool concept that I knew nothing about. It is more focused on the romance, I will say that, but I personally had no problem with it. I enjoyed every second of it. I cried a lot, multiple times. 5-star read, truly no notes. My most disappointing read was The Life Impossible by Matt Haig, which is a little sad for me because I love The Midnight Library by him, and I know he has a few other books that I need to read that I do think I will like more. This one, I think, was a little bit harder for me to get into. It follows a woman who gets a mysterious letter telling her that she now owns a house on an island, I think in Mallorca. I think that's where this is set. And the house and island have like some weird things going on. I don't really know how to explain the plot of this. I didn't love how it ended. I didn't love the characters that much. I don't even remember what the life lesson in this was, but I remember finishing it and being like, I don't really agree with it. I think I gave this 3.5 stars. Again, didn't hate it because I do really like this author's writing, but not my favorite. Okay, we're in the second half of the year now. July ended up being my lowest reading month. I only read 10 books. Only, obviously that's still a lot, but low for me. However, I did read my #1 book of the year, and that was The Bright Years. This is obviously my favorite of the month. There's pretty much no competition, honestly. I did read We Are All Guilty Here, which I did really, really, really love, but a thriller versus a lit fic that made me cry, it's kind of a no-brainer. This follows a family of 3. It tackles generational trauma. There's a big focus on alcoholism in this, and like I said, it will make you cry, but I think it's under 300 pages. Truly such an incredible read. This is one of the books that I read this year that I think about every single day. As for my most disappointing, we have yet again a 2-way tie. Although I will say it happened one summer, I did kind of expect to not love it. Tessa Bailey is generally a miss for me, and this one was no different. In fact, I think I hated this one the most. I have talked about this one at length, so I won't get into it yet again. The other book that disappointed me was The Measure, which is so sad because the concept is so interesting to me. This is a sci-fi kind of magical realism novel. It takes place in a world where everyone gets a box delivered to their house with a string that signifies how long of a life they have left to live. I think that it became a little bit too real for me. I also thought it was very long, a lot of characters. It took a while for things to connect. I just didn't love it, which is sad because this special edition is literally stunning. I will say I do think that there's a lot of mixed opinions on this one, which makes it a really good book club read. Now in August I read 12 books, a couple really good ones. The Other Side of Now especially, loved it. However, I did end up receiving a physical arc of maybe one of my most anticipated reads of the entire year, and that was The Impossible Fortune by Richard Osman, and it was just so good. Another 5-star read. This series, the Thursday Murder Club series, just truly gets better and better. It is one of my favorite, actually it is my favorite cozy mystery series. So they all follow a group of pensioners or retirees that live in a retirement community together. They're all slightly different. You have Joyce, who is very much like a homemaker, a little bit naive. You have Ron, who is much more blue collar. Ibrahim, who is a retired therapist, so he has a lot of feelings. And Elizabeth, who is basically a badass. Every single one of these books, as you get further and further into the series, you get to know them more and you're more familiar with the characters, so it gets less and less confusing and it feels less like there's a lot of them. And you're kind of just returning to your favorite TV show. That's basically what it feels like. Book 2 is still my absolute favorite. I love that one so much, but I love this one. In this one, you get to know Ron a lot more. You get to know his family a lot more. You get a little bit more with Joyce's daughter. Richard Osman, I hope you never stop writing these books, truly. As for most disappointing, that title unfortunately goes to Wild Reverence. I loved Divine Rivals. I will say I have not read Ruthless Vows yet. I've been told it's not as good as the first book. I didn't want that to deter me, but now that I didn't love Wild Reverence as much as I thought I would, I'm kind of feeling like that might happen to me with Ruthless Vows. I didn't feel it as much in Divine Rivals, but Rebecca Ross's writing is definitely very much more literary, poetic, descriptive. Wild Reverence is long, and it's a prequel, and I feel like there wasn't enough action in it, and also the romance to me felt insta-love, and as we all know, I'm not a big insta-love girly. YA. This is part of a romantasy world. I don't think you have to read them in publication order if you want. You definitely need to read Ruthless Vows after Divine Rivals. However, the ending of Wild Reverence I think will mean a lot more if you read Divine Rivals first, which would be in publication order. In Wild Reverence, you get to learn more about the backstory of the gods in this entire universe. In Divine Rivals, that story follows a romance between two writers during a war, and the war is kind of governed by the gods in this world. I don't know if that explanation made any sense. I don't want to spoil anything from any of the books, so I feel like that's all I can say. I think if you like romantasy, but you also want it to be more poetic, you'll probably like this one more than me. It just wasn't really my cup of tea. Now September, my birth month, that was a pretty good month, I gotta say. I read Play Nice, loved it. Probably one of my favorite horrors I've ever read. Aftertaste, also loved. Very unique, paranormal, tiny bit horror, but also had romance. But my favorite was The Dead Romantics. Clearly I was very into the paranormal vibes in September, and I think this might be when I realized that I love paranormal romances. This one, no different. So cozy. It follows a ghost writer who ends up returning to her hometown after like something happens in her family, yada yada yada. There's a romance with a ghost, but I don't want to tell you anything else because I don't want to spoil anything. If you love the movie Just Like Heaven, you will love this book. I gave it 5 stars. I actually gave it 4.5 stars when I first read it, and then I kept thinking about it and how cozy it was and wholesome and cute, and then I bumped it up to 5 stars because it really stuck with me. As for my most disappointing read, we have another tie. Pictures of You by Emma Gray and Butcher and Blackbird by Brynn Weaver. Pictures of You, again, to be fair, not necessarily because it was overhyped, just because I went into it thinking I would love it. Romantic suspense, dual timeline, set in Australia, which is fun. My biggest issue with this book is that I could not understand the romance. One character was just kind of obsessed with the other, and then the other character was just like, okay. I didn't get behind the romance in this one at all, and that took away from the overall story for me. Also, pretty long. How long are you? Just about 400 pages. This one is about a woman who wakes up in a hospital after getting into a car accident with her husband. If you are going to read this, that's all you need to know. I ended up giving it 3.5 stars. Again, didn't hate it, but I really thought it would be better. And then Butcher and Blackbird, no one told me it was going to be insta-love, so I went into this thinking this is going to be a home run. Dark romance. Irish, is he Irish or Scottish? I can't remember. I think Irish, male main character. The audiobook is a duet. The insta-love was just so insta-lovey. I hated it. I hated it. This is like the true example of how it can really ruin a book for me. This is a romance between 2 serial killers, and they become obsessed with each other on basically page 1, page 10 maybe, I don't know. And they're obsessed the entire time. It is very gory too, and I needed the romance to kind of take away from that, and it didn't because I didn't get behind it. I will continue the series because supposedly the second book is not insta-love, but this is everyone's favorite in the series, so I'm kind of confused. I think we're just not on the same page as everyone else. I think I ended up giving this 3.5 stars as well. October was a fun month with really good books. I ended up reading Anxious People, my first Frederick Bachman book, and I loved it. I read What Happens in Amsterdam, loved that one too. The Best Worst Thing, also a fantastic romance. But I did finally read Six of Crows, and I loved it. This is the first book in a fantasy duology. I believe it's YA fantasy because the characters are, I think, in their late teens. A group of kids, or not kids, band together to do a very risky, dangerous, insane heist. I don't remember exactly what it is that they were trying to steal, but they have to go undercover. They all kind of are weary about each other, but they have to work together in order to complete it. The found family in this is fantastic. The characters, fantastic. The audiobook was really good too. I gave it 4.5 stars. I do need to read Crooked Kingdom, the next book in the series, which I will soon. I honestly think I haven't because I don't want to part with these characters. Like, I loved them. My most disappointing was Lock Every Door. Here's the thing. This is now the second Riley Sager book that I just was like, this is fine. The major twists in, what was that book? What? The House Across the Lake? No, the one with the blue and red cover. I'll put a picture right here. In that book and in Lock Every Door, the twist just did not hit for me, and it kind of pissed me off. And Lock Every Door was actually kind of not as fast paced as I wanted it to be. It's a thriller. It takes place at this really rich apartment building where a girl ends up house sitting for an apartment, and creepy stuff happens, and there are gargoyles. That's like all I remember from it, other than the twist, which I obviously can't tell you. Not my favorite. I think I gave it 3 stars, and that did feel generous. I think looking back, I'd probably give it 2.5 stars. November was actually really hard to choose. I didn't have any 5-star reads, but I had so many 4.5-star reads. I read Conform, which reminded me how much I love dystopian romance. I read Wreck, the sequel to Sandwich, and it was even better than Sandwich, and it was so funny. Fast read, loved it. I read Enchantra, which was better than Phantasma. The spice in it was impeccable. I read Bury Our Bones, which I ended up loving. I was worried I wouldn't because I'm not the biggest Invisible Life of Addie LaRue fan. That was a like, not a love for me. So I thought that I had the same issue because it's by the same author. I think V. Schwab's writing and then adding in vampires to it just was like a perfect book for me. However, I think my favorite of the month ended up being Famous Last Words by Gillian McAllister because this thriller was just so fun and original and had so many twists. I read it in under 24 hours. I ended up giving it 4.5 stars just because it was like a tiny bit predictable, but there were a couple twists in here that I didn't see coming. This is about a woman who wakes up one morning to find out that her husband is holding people hostage, and then, you know, naturally things happen. I don't want to tell you anything else about it. Go into it blind other than that. The other book of hers that I've read is Wrong Place, Wrong Time. Loved that one. She has another book coming out next year. I need to read that one too. I love her writing so much. My most disappointing should come as no surprise to anyone that watched my holiday reading vlog. Love you, Alatka. Wanted a really good Hanukkah romance. As someone who's Jewish, I would just love that representation. This was not it. The plot is very much Hallmark movie plot. It's about a cafe owner who somehow ends up in charge of a Hanukkah festival. She needs help with it, so she pairs up with the only other Jewish person in her radius, which ends up being one of her customers who she actually kind of hates. Then they end up going to New York City to his parents' house. That's basically the entire plot. It's a holiday romance. They go from basically 0 to 180, from like hating each other to loving each other. It's closed door. I did not like the characters and I didn't really love the style of writing and I didn't love it. I think I gave it 2 stars. Not my fave. And last but not least, December. Now December, I looked at every book that I read so far. I'm filming this on the 29th, so it's basically the end of the month. There is room for there to be a most disappointing read, but at this current moment, there were none. I have had a fantastic reading month. My lowest rating for any book that I read was 3.75 stars, which is basically 4 stars, which is basically a really good book, other than a couple novellas, but they're novellas, and so I'm just not gonna count those. So my favorite, however, I did read Last Christmas in Paris, which if you follow me on Instagram, you know how much I loved that book. I also loved A Winter in New York. That one was a surprise. I also loved In My Dreams I Hold a Knife, but I have to go with my last 5-star read of the year, Mate. Guys, this was so good. I am still giddy over how much I ended up loving this book because I was so worried it was not going to live up to Bride for me. Fun fact, Bride was the first Ali Hazelwood book I have ever read. I loved it. I gave it 5 stars. I read it so fast. I couldn't put it down. I am a sucker for vampires. I love Ali's writings. That one was perfect for me. That was a romance, werewolf romance. This one is a werewolf, hybrid werewolf romance. The male main character is so grumpy and I loved it. And he's also like kind of rude, but there's reasons for it, which makes sense, so you can't even be mad at him. This is the most delicious slow burn that I think I read all year. The tension. If you liked Bride, I think this one is just as good. I think Bride edges it out a tiny bit, but again, I still gave it 5 stars. I loved it. This was just a little bit slow in the first half, but the second half was just so good that I don't even care. It made it all worth it. There we are. This is officially going to be my last YouTube video of 2025. And somehow I ended up reaching my goal of 10 videos. I am planning on increasing that goal next year to at least 24 videos. I want to post twice a month. If you have any specific videos you'd love to see from me, please let me know in the comments. I want to do more reading vlogs, but I also really like these sit down videos as well. They're much easier to edit also. I have some ideas for some videos, but I will take anything else that you want to see from me. And if you are subscribed, thank you. Even if you're just a watcher of my videos, thank you so much. And I will see you next year. Happy New Year.